Good morning, afternoon, evening, or night, ladies, gentlemen, and otherwise. I am Marcus Future, but you can call me the Timeline Man. And welcome to the March devlog for my current project, A New Dawn for the Elements. As you can tell by the title and this whole setup right now, this month's edition is a little different. I don't really have much of a big picture item, so I'm making this a bit more of a minute aspect talking about games. This one really relates to any form of artistic creation or keeping a job, even to an extent. To be clear, I'm not going to try to get up on a pulpit and preach to you about how to really work or some out of touch boomer nonsense that you might hear in many other corners of the internet. This video is probably going to be a bit more like my video essays, so we'll see how it goes. Let's hop right into it. If there's anything I learned from the philosophy class I took in college, or from talking about inflammatory subjects on the internet, it's the importance of defining the words you mean when you say the words you're using, lest you cause confusion or let other people decide what those words mean for you. This is especially important in the case where words have many meanings depending on how you grew up or what kind of employers you've had. I have no doubt in my mind that to many of you, discipline is the word your parents used to justify cruel punishments or yelling at you when you were a kid. Now, I've seen the analytics for my channel. Just about everyone who has watched my videos is an adult, or my audience is entirely full of children who are really cautious liars. Because it's like 18 to 34 range, I think. I'm going off the cuff here and saying that one. So either way, I believe that there's some distance between the current reality of most people watching this video and the reality of a child who faced unfair treatment from their parents and authority figures. When I speak of discipline in this video, I more fully mean self-discipline. Self-discipline can be considered a virtue or a skill. It's a very important concept in martial arts, of which I spent the majority of my childhood surrounded by, thanks to my dad. So when I talk about discipline in this video, I'm talking about a concept closely related to self-restraint. It's the ability to judge what needs to be done, to what degree it must be done, and the ability to make yourself do it. In my mind, it is closely tied to courage, which, importantly, is not the lack of fear. Discipline is not the lack of being tired or the lack of wants, but rather the ability to act despite those things. It is the ability to move and do what you need to do to reach your goals. But what do I mean by motivation? Employers and teachers love to throw that word around like it's some sort of magic dust that will make absurd deadlines easier to meet, make you able to meet whatever expectations have been placed upon you. What I mean when I talk about motivation is the spark of temporary productivity, that little zhuzh that can make doing the dishes enjoyable, or at least a little more bearable on that random Tuesday. That get up and go that you might have at 2 a.m. when you decide that your room is actually too dirty for you to sleep, and you just pick up everything real quick in your immediate vicinity. That's what I mean by that quick spark of motivation. Now, this isn't to be confused with a manic episode that some people have for various reasons, where they go and do something really drastic with all sorts of energy that just disappears all at once. Using the example of that 2 a.m. cleaning session, that is, for a manic episode, might extend that into choosing to reorganize your entire bedroom, and then your mattress is up against the wall, and you're really tired. That's the line. I'm not entirely sure where one of those things ends and one begins. I'm not really an expert on this. I'm just a guy on the internet talking. Remember that. That's important. But it is important that those things are to recognize that those things are different. Now, the concepts I'm talking about here are related to each other. I promise this. And also, yes, I promise this is related to New Dawn for the Elements. This is related to my game development. I promise. If you are someone who has ever worked on a large artistic endeavor, you've definitely run across this line at some point or another. Motivation is usually the starting line for art, at least personal project. There's a cool concept in your head that you want to get out there into the world. So you get started, writing out a plot, sketching out a plan, playing some notes on a piano, whatever you feel most motivated to start with in the task that you may not realize is a lot bigger than you ever thought. This happens all the time. I didn't know how hard it was to make a game. I didn't know how hard it was to make assets. Here I am. Eventually, you run into something that you're not as motivated to do that you need to do in order to finish this project. The horn line could use some drums. You don't have the color of paint you want, so you'll have to buy it or mix it up from other paint, or maybe something as small and seemingly trivial as having to get up to sharpen your pencil. As you run into these road bumps, you may cry out, I don't wanna. This is the line. The part where, in order to get the things you want to do, there are very big have-to-dos. In my life, I've heard this little phrase a number of times. Just turn those have-tos into get-tos. In all my life, this has not worked. It has never worked for me. It's one of those phrases that people who don't really want to deal with your problems say. If it was so simple, I'd have a very clean house. At that point, it's important, in order to keep going, to have some level of discipline. It's very easy, especially when it comes to something like art, to simply stop. If, like most people, including myself, art is not the thing that pays your bills, the easier option is to sit and wait for the motivation, or wait for a good day. This does extend beyond the artistic pursuits, though. I've been guilty of putting off grocery shopping because I didn't want to. The problem with this when making art is that motivation may never arrive. It's a really sad reality of the way art works sometimes. To give a concrete example to hammer home this idea, imagine that the task is a cart that you have to get from one end of a set of track to the other. The track starts at the top of a hill, so the first section is incredibly easy, but at some point you come to a steep incline. The cart stops. You have numerous options available to you. You could call for help moving the cart, you could just abandon the cart there, or you could get out and start pushing the cart up the incline. Once at the top of the incline, there may be another easy downhill, or it may flatten out for a while. The difficulty of continuing the task at hand will change, but with the ability to grit your teeth just a bit, you may very well get to the end when, at the foot of that incline, you may have never thought to try and get out and push. Now, I'm not stupid. I know that saying, just grit your teeth and keep pushing, is, on its own, no more helpful than the phrase, turn have-tos into get-tos. I said at the beginning, discipline is a skill or a virtue, depending on who you ask. If you ask me, it's a skill. And like all skills, it takes practice. It takes practice to get better at. Even still, there are times when discipline simply is not the answer that will help. For those watching who don't tune into my live streams or don't know me very well, I am autistic. One of the features of that, and the features in air quotes, is executive dysfunction. It's a horrid experience that I wouldn't wish upon anyone. Sometimes I am simply an observer to my own inaction. I will be in my own head, screaming at myself, get up, the dishes haven't been done in 2 days, and there are no more cups. Do the dishes, you goddamn meat sack. I will simply continue to sit and stare at whatever it is I'm looking at. Maybe doom scrolling, staring at my desktop with a growing pit of anxiety in my gut. No amount of discipline will help me to get me moving in those situations. That's just the reality of it. A very similar sentiment applies to people with depression. Therefore, it's very important to understand yourself and the situation you specifically are dealing with, lest you become the crotchety old man who says bootstraps in every conversation, but in your own head. You don't want to be that person. Don't be the bully inside your own brain. Alright, this is probably a question that some of you have had. Well, March, as I said earlier in the video, didn't have anything particularly exciting in terms of what I did this month. I made some more assets, including another CG artwork. I filled out the database a bit more. I made a cutscene or two, but none of that takes very long to say. In fact, I just did in like 25 seconds, and that's easy. And if you're really curious about the minutia of all that, I have a Twitch where I stream some of the development process every Wednesday at 11 a.m. CST. And on Discord that has a channel dedicated to the itty bitty steps along the way as I get them done. There was no flashy feature I was working on, no revolutionary change in design, just making more of what I've made already and fixing bugs when I can. And that's really most of the development process. It's at these times when that motivation runs low. There's nothing exciting happening in the development process. I'm kind of doing a lot of tedious things over and over again. And this is where discipline becomes very relevant. A new dawn for the elements will never be a great or even a good game if I do not have the discipline to work on the things that I don't really want to do. If all I did was implement systems and cool extras every month, the game would never be truly made. It'd be an overly designed couple of maps with too many mechanics to make use of, like someone who got big on YouTube here a while back with a game that they started making, and then everything went a lot worse for them. If you know who I'm talking about, you know who I'm talking about. I'm not going to elaborate on this. Alright, so here's the current set of small picture items I'm going to tack on to the end here. So I've continued putting out more stat curves. I think last time I was up through here at 6. I've continued the initial drafting up through 11, and then I gave Liam his characteristically low luck stat. Beyond that, that's all. I still have a few to do there. I've worked on implementing some of the other skill stuff. I actually added a couple weapons into here. I've added a few cutscenes. I've advanced. The story is advancing. It's moving forward, I promise you. And then, oh, I'm nearly done with chapter 1. Liam exists now. There he is. Liam's here. Look at him. Isn't that great? And then, here's a little bit of a notice here to tack on to the end, is that I'm not doing the emote poses anymore. As I've gone about making my cutscenes, I've realized that adding the emote poses would complicate my stream of creating cutscenes, and while they would improve the way things I can do with direction, making the sprites is already enough. I already have enough work ahead of me making just the locomotion sprites for everything. So I've decided that I'm just not going to bother with it, you know? I'm just going to use walking animations and balloon icons and jumping to try to just basically, like, it's going to be a similar cutscene direction to what you saw in Sunset of the Elements. Probably a little bit better. A little bit more. I'm nearly done with chapter 1, although I have just recently decided to extend chapter 1's story a little bit. So yeah, you'll get to know Chris, Alexander, Quicksilver, and Vesta a pretty good amount by the time chapter 1 is done, and then we can move on to chapter 2 with I believe chapter 2 is going to be Ivor, Aldebrand, Dylan, and, you know, them. Anyway, thank you all for watching. If you watch this, and please put in the comments the word shaboingus. Anyway, thank you all for watching once again, and stay safe out there. I'll see you next time.